The Amor Fati. Chapter 1. The Sinking Boat.
The rain did not fall in drops, it fell in heavy iron sheets that battered the black waters of the river. The air smelled of rotten wood, wet mud, and the distant metallic scent of thunder. At the edge of the forgotten dock, where the water turned into a thick, swirling vortex, a young man sat in the mud. His name was Brandon. His clothes, once fine and expensive, were now torn, soaked, and plastered to his skin. His hands were covered in scratches, and his face was distorted by a mixture of deep despair and furious resentment. Just 2 days ago, Brandon was a wealthy merchant, a man who believed he had secured his future. But fate, with its sudden and indifferent hand, had sent a flash flood down the valley. His warehouses had been washed away, his coin chests were buried under tons of river silt, and his partners had abandoned him to save themselves. He was left with nothing but the clothes on his back and a heavy, suffocating weight in his chest. "Why me?" Brandon screamed into the empty expanse of the river, his voice cracking against the roar of the thunder. "What did I do to deserve this? I worked honestly. I built everything with my own blood. Why does the universe conspire against me? It isn't fair." He threw a stone into the black water, watching it vanish instantly. He felt like a leaf trapped in a hurricane, powerless, broken, and entirely a victim of a cruel world. He wanted the world to see his pain. He wanted the gods to feel guilty for what they had done to him. From the thick white fog that crawled across the river, a slow, rhythmic sound began to emerge. Creak, splash, creak, splash. A long, narrow boat made of ancient, blackened timber slowly pierced through the mist. Standing at the stern, holding a massive wooden oar with hands that looked like wrinkled tree roots, was a tall figure wrapped in a dark, weathered cloak. His face was hidden beneath a deep hood, but his eyes, reflecting the dim golden light of a small lantern hanging from the bow, carried the weight of 1,000 winters. It was Charon. The old ferryman brought the boat to a silent halt against the muddy bank. He did not look at Brandon with pity, nor did he offer a hand. He simply stood there, an unshakable statue against the pouring rain. Brandon looked up from the mud, his eyes red from weeping. "Are you here to take me away too?" "Go ahead. Take what's left of me. The river already took my life, my wealth, and my dignity. I have nothing left to give." Charon did not answer with words of comfort. His voice, when he finally spoke, was deep, raspy, and carried the slow, clinical weight of a mountain. "The river did not take your life, young man," Charon said, his eyes locking onto Brandon's desperate gaze. "The river merely took your things. Your life is still in your chest, and your dignity is something only you can throw away in the mud. Step onto the boat, or stay here and drown in your own tears. The choice is yours."
Chapter 2. The Ledger of the Victim.
Brandon dragged himself into the wooden boat, collapsing onto the wet floorboards. The wood was cold, smelling of ancient journeys and distant shores. As Charon pushed off from the bank with a single, powerful stroke of his oar, the boat glided back into the thick, suffocating fog. For a long time, the only sound was the howling wind and the rhythmic splash of the oar. Brandon huddled against the side of the boat, shivering, his mind spinning in a loop of self-pity. "You don't understand, ferryman," Brandon muttered, his teeth chattering. "You just row this boat. You don't know what it means to lose an empire. You don't know the injustice of it. I am ruin." Everything I fought for is gone, and I am completely helpless. Charon paused his rowing for a single second. He looked down at Brandon, the lantern light catching the harsh lines of his old face. "You speak of injustice as if the universe owed you a contract," Charon said softly, his voice cutting through the wind. "You believe you are a victim of the river, but you are actually a victim of your own mind. Look at the ledger you are keeping in your head. You are counting everything that was taken from you, but you refuse to see what you still possess." "What do I possess?" Brandon laughed bitterly. "Look at me. I have nothing. You possess the only thing that ever belonged to you in the first place," Charon replied, resuming his steady stroke. "Your will, your character, your capacity to choose how you respond to this day. You believe that happiness is a tower you build out of gold and wood, and when the wind blows it down, you think you are destroyed. But the tower was never you. The tower was just an object outside of you. The true tragedy is not that the tower fell, but that you have chosen to lie down in the ruins and act as if your legs are broken." Charon leaned on his oar, looking out into the mist. "A man who wraps himself in the cloak of a victim is the most pitiful creature on this earth. He gives up his power. He blames the storm, he blames the gods, he blames his friends, and by blaming them, he ensures that he remains completely powerless. If the storm is the cause of your ruin, then you must wait for the storm to come and rebuild you. Is that your grand plan, merchant? To wait for the river to bring your gold back?" Brandon lowered his head. The old man's words were cold, but they had a strange, undeniable clarity. They stripped away his excuses, leaving his weakness completely naked in the middle of the dark water.
Chapter 3: The Fire of Amor Fati.
"Then what am I supposed to do?" Brandon asked, his voice dropping from anger to a quiet, raw desperation. "Am I supposed to celebrate the fact that I lost everything? Am I supposed to be happy that my hard work was washed away in an hour?" "Not happy," Charon answered, his voice becoming firmer, taking on the tone of a master ironworker. "But you must accept it. More than accept it, you must love it. Love my ruin." Brandon looked up, confused. "That is madness. The ancient sages called it Amor Fati, the love of fate," Charon said, the lantern light reflecting in his dark eyes. "It is not a passive surrender, it is the highest form of mental warfare. Think of a roaring fire, Brandon. What happens when you throw a pile of wet leaves onto a small fire? It chokes the flame, turns it into black smoke, and suffocates it. That is the mind of a victim. Every obstacle, every loss, is a wet leaf that smothers their spirit." Charon struck the wooden floor of the boat with the handle of his oar, a sharp, echoing sound. "But what happens when you throw those same leaves, or wood, or even iron into a massive, raging furnace? The furnace does not complain. It does not cry that the wood is heavy or that the iron is cold. It consumes it. It heats it. It turns the obstacle into fuel, making the fire brighter, hotter, and more powerful than before. A Stoic treats fate exactly like that furnace. Whatever happens to him, whether it is victory or ruin, health or sickness, wealth or poverty, he does not wish for a different reality. He accepts the raw material that fate has dropped into his lap, and he says, 'This is exactly what I needed to grow.'" Charon rowed the boat closer to a dangerous stretch of the river, where jagged, black rocks split the rushing water into violent rapids. "Look at these rocks, Brandon," Charon commanded. The river does not fight them. It flows over them, around them, using the very obstacles to create its own grand texture. If your wealth had stayed, you would have remained a soft merchant counting coins in a warm room forever. Fate has stripped you of your gold so that you can find out who you are without it. It has given you a clean slate, a violent fire, and an anvil. Will you turn this crisis into a wet leaf that puts out your flame, or will you turn it into the very fuel that burns away your illusions?
Chapter 4. The Weight of the Oar.
The boat entered the rapids. The water began to churn violently, spraying cold foam over the bow. The wooden hull groaned under the immense pressure of the current, and the boat began to drift toward a massive, submerged boulder. Charon's muscles strained against the heavy wooden oar, his veins standing out like iron cables against his pale skin. Brandon, gripped by sudden terror, reached out to hold the edges of the boat. "Charon, the current is too strong. We are going to hit the rock. Row left. Do something." Charon did not panic. His face remained perfectly calm, his breathing steady. "The oar is heavy, young man, and my arms are old. If you want to survive this river, stop shouting at the water and take hold of the wood." Brandon hesitated for a fraction of a second. His hands were raw, his body was exhausted, and his mind was still screaming that he was a victim who shouldn't be in this position. But looking at Charon's unyielding posture, something snapped inside him. He realized that no one was coming to save him. The river didn't care about his tears, and the universe didn't care about his past wealth. There was only the boat, the oar, and the rock in front of him. He crawled to the stern, grabbed the rough, splintered wood of the massive oar right next to Charon's hands, and pulled with all his strength. The wood bit into his raw palms, causing his scratches to reopen, but he ignored the pain. He synchronized his breathing with the old man's movements. Together, they threw their entire weight against the current, forcing the heavy, blackened boat to turn just a few inches. With a loud, scraping sound, the side of the boat brushed against the massive boulder, but it did not break. The boat cleared the rapids, gliding back into a wide, peaceful, and still part of the river where the mist began to thin. Brandon collapsed back onto the bench, gasping for air. He looked at his bleeding hands, then at the dangerous rocks behind them. His heart was hammering against his ribs, but the suffocating weight in his chest, the heavy, dark cloud of resentment, was completely gone. He didn't feel like a victim anymore. He felt a strange, electric current of life coursing through his veins. Charon looked at him, a faint, grim smile appearing beneath his dark hood. "The water is the same, Brandon. The rain is still falling. You are still a man without a single coin in his pocket. But look at your eyes, you are no longer drowning."
Chapter 5. The New Shore.
The boat gently bumped against a new, unfamiliar bank of the river. The soil here was gray and rocky, rising up toward a vast forest of ancient pines. The storm was finally beginning to slow, the thunder rolling away into the distant mountains. Brandon stood up. His body was sore, his clothes were ruined, but his posture had changed. He stood straight, his head held high, his shoulders square against the cold morning air. "Where are we, Charon?" Brandon asked quietly. "A new shore," Charon replied, keeping the boat steady with his oar. A place where your past does not exist. A place where you have no warehouses, no contracts, and no reputation. You are a man stripped bare by fate. Brandon looked at the vast forest, then down at his raw, calloused hands. For the first time in 2 days, he didn't feel anger toward the river. He felt a deep, profound gratitude. He realized that the flood had not destroyed his life, it had simply destroyed his comfort. It had cleared away the heavy, golden armor that had made his soul soft and arrogant. I spent my life fearing this exact moment, Brandon murmured, stepping out of the boat and onto the rocky shore. I thought that if I lost my wealth, I would become nothing. But holding that oar with you, I felt more alive than I ever did in my counting house. Because on the water you discovered the furnace, Charon said, his voice fading back into the deep rhythm of the fog. The river can take your gold, Brandon. It can take your house. It can take your friends, but it can never take the power of a mind that has chosen to love its own destiny. When you welcome every disaster as an opportunity to test your virtue, you become invincible. Fate has no power over a man who uses its blows as a hammer to forge his own soul. When Brandon turned around to thank the old ferryman, but the black boat had already drifted back into the white, silent mist. The rhythmic creak, splash of the oar grew fainter and fainter until it was swallowed entirely by the silence of the river. Brandon smiled, a sharp, determined expression. He turned away from the river, took a deep breath of the cold pine air, and walked firmly into the unknown forest. Most of us spend our lives playing the role of the victim. When a project fails, when a relationship ends, or when an unexpected crisis shatters our plans, we instantly shout into the void, asking, "Why me? Why is life so unfair?" But a Stoic knows that the universe does not operate on a human contract of fairness. Fate is a river that flows according to its own grand laws. Stop treating your obstacles as tragedies that are destroying your life. Stop wrapping yourself in the heavy, suffocating cloak of self-pity. Treat every crisis, every loss, and every sudden shift of fortune as the raw wood that is thrown into your inner furnace. Look at the harsh reality in front of you, strip away your excuses, and take hold of the oar. Love your fate, not because it is easy, but because it is the only fire that can turn your soft iron into an unbreakable soul. Step onto the boat. This is Neo Aurelium, transmission on the love of fate. Stay unshakable, stay in serenity,